Hello there, you're welcome to the marketplace. Coming up, World Bank signs agreement with governments for the release of $200 million to support fight against COVID-19. We have details on this developing story. Also coming up, demand for air travel increases in the SAP region as a third wave of COVID-19 amid Delta variant stares us in the face. We have a discussion on passenger safety with aviation expert Sean Mendes shortly. And later in the bulletin, as the government embarks on an ambitious Beyond the Return initiative to woo diaspora investors, we ask whether or not the issue regarding customer safety is a situation government must look into.
Important that we are systematizing those standards, but that is going to take some time. Are we ready for that? I don't know. Do we know how to do that? I don't know. Are we willing to invest in it? I don't know. I mean, that's a question for every business to answer.
Hello once again. We have all these stories and more coming up shortly after this break. Do stay. Now to our first story. The Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, is likely to present a supplementary budget to Parliament by the end of this month. Now, this will be in addition to the mid-year of estimates that he will table before the House for approval during the same period. But will this result in additional spending? George Riafi has the rest of the story.
Business understands that the decision to present the supplementary budget is yet to get the approval from the economic management team and cabinet. If the minister secures the necessary blessings, which should happen this week, then he will indeed go ahead and present it to Parliament, possibly in the last week of this month. But we are learning that the presentation of the supplementary budget will not come with seeking Parliament's approval to spend more for the remaining half of this year, or call it a significant spike in spending. For some analysts, this can be described as interesting because in most situations, supplementary budgets often comes with the minister seeking approval to spend more. Well, things are at the initial stages now, and depending on how things will pan out during the economic management meeting and even cabinet briefing this Thursday, we'll get a better picture on what will happen when Ken Ofori-Atta appears before Parliament. But what we are certain for now is that before July 31, he must appear before Parliament to review the estimates set out in the 2021 budget, which is required by law. However, when it comes to the presentation of the supplementary budget, it is still left to the discretion of the finance minister, depending on the state of the country's finances. Others have maintained that he may want to use this window to introduce some fresh policy measures. Some economists have argued that the finance minister should be moderate with the review when it goes before Parliament, since we are left with some few months to the end of this year.
Well, let's still stay on this story because Professor Peter Korte is an economist. He joins us live for more on this. We're so grateful, Prof, that you joined us. The minister claims that this will not come with any serious expenditure. Are you convinced by that?
Well, I have no doubts in what the minister has said, because you can't spend what you don't have. And I believe he's going to tell us the trends in revenue generated so far since January, and would also tell us how well the new taxes that were introduced are faring in terms of raking in the needed revenue. So once that information is provided and we realize how much we have in the kitty, of course, then it leads to whether we want to spend more or want to use part of the extra revenue generated to reduce our debt stock. But I have no doubt in what the minister has said.
Well, regarding matters, concerning the budget, of course, questions remain. Can the supplementary budget actually leave us on a much more good note ending the fiscal year?
Well, the supplementary, I mean, every step you take, you need to step back and take stock or evaluate whatever you have. And I believe the supplementary budget is serving that purpose. So we don't witness significant deviations from targets. If there are new or unexpected revenue that has come in since the budget was read, of course, that has to be made public to Parliament, to the Ghanaian public. If there are new expenditures that are very eminent and have to be incurred. Parliament have to know, the Ghanaian people, the good people of Ghana will have to know. So I think the supplementary budget is not a bad thing. We don't want to deviate too much from our estimates or our targets. And hopefully, by end of the year, we would have some decent numbers to show, given that we correct any mistake or any deviations as early as possible.
But Prof, how do you also respond to concerns that the supplementary budget could increase the debt stock?
Well, it may or may not, because I don't think it will be very unusual for, given where we find ourselves, given the debt GDP ratio, for a finance minister to come and ask for more approvals in terms of loans when we have not increased our revenue generation capacity. So it goes hand in hand. We might want to see more revenue generated. Then, of course, if we're going to borrow or going to increase our debt stock, then there could be justification. Of course, justification for how much we're going to borrow and what we're going to use it for. If it's going to be invested, then of course, there's every room for accommodation. But if it's going to be used for consumption, then I believe Parliament would scrutinize this and of course, indicate their displeasure.
Well, also, how can we ensure that the supplementary budget fast tracks economic recovery? We know that COVID-19 has had its fair share. We've had our fair share of the effects of COVID-19. But how can this budget, this supplementary budget, fast track our recovery out of this mess?
Yes, it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's a means of stock taking and review. So having reviewed our revenue measures over the past 6 months or so, government will, or the minister will then look at it, having thought about new ways of raising money or funding. This could be an opportunity to put in more money in areas that require growth, areas that will stimulate the recovery. We know agriculture is one of the key areas that has been resilient and can help so much with the recovery. So is industry, especially manufacturing. We've seen manufacturing pick up quite significantly. So this supplementary budget should be used to stimulate the economy, given that we're going to find new ways of raising revenue. We're going to find in this budget how the new taxes have fared in terms of bringing us more revenue. So certainly it could be a very significant step towards the recovery.
We're so grateful, Professor Peter Quartey, for your input on this development. Well, here's another story following up for you. The Finance Minister will submit the list of board members for the National Development Bank to the Bank of Ghana for approval. Joy Business understands that this will done earlier this month. But is the National Development Bank set to take off from the end of this month? George Rafi once again gives us details.
We understand this is one of the hurdles that government has to clear to help the bank take off, as expected, by the end of this month. Sources say when the board members are approved, the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, would then officially name the person that would chair the board. He is also expected to do this in consultation with the development partners and also appoint an interim chief executive from these board members to run the institution for now. Joy Business understands that government has subjected itself to strict international guidelines when it came to the nomination of these board members and even recruiting some persons to run the institution on an interim basis. This is expected to help deal with any undue political interference with the bank. The Finance Ministry itself believes that this might be one of the best approaches to ensure that for the first time, the bank stands the test of time. The board will also have some strong institutional representation from the World Bank and the German development institution, that is KfW. According to the Finance Ministry and the international consultants brought on board, they have put in place the necessary structures to aid the smooth takeoff of the bank from the end of this month. Government is hoping to use the National Development Bank to enhance long-term lending to commercial banks and some sectors in the economy.
Well, let's now move to the aviation sector as an ease on restrictions pick up flight numbers, especially within the sub-region. The rollout of a vaccination campaign by government has instilled confidence in the general traveling and stimulated demand. Some airlines, such as Air Côte d'Ivoire, have announced more traveling options within West and Central Africa, despite the surge in the new Delta variant virus across the globe. But as this plays out, questions arise over the safety of air travels in these times. Well, aviation expert Sean Mendes joins us via Zoom to further explain what exactly is happening within our aviation space. We're so grateful, Sean, that you joined us. Well, how busy are flight schedules within the sub-region? If you could kindly unmute your microphone so we could hear you.
The West African sub-region is actually doing extremely well. I think Ghana might actually be leading all of Africa in terms of how the domestic traffic is recovering. We just had a chance to have a look at the first half of the year, that is January to June numbers, and these are in line with about 350,000 passengers traveled domestically in Ghana, which puts us on track for about 700,000 for the year. Now, to put that in perspective, there were 690,000 passengers in 2019, which was the last full year without any disruptions. So I think Ghana's recovery, especially with domestic traffic, has been extremely strong. On the regional front, I think we're beginning to see a lot slower recovery, but the recovery is there nonetheless. And you see this, as you mentioned, as plenty of airlines are adding more capacity in the region. From Ghana itself, AWA has now gone to 3 times daily between Accra and Lagos. Air Peace has increased their Lagos to Accra flights to twice daily. They are restarting flights within the sub-region to Freetown and Banjul and elsewhere. Air Senegal is launching a new route to Freetown as well. So I think there is definitely a confidence in the sub-region as more and more vaccinations take hold and as people are able to travel with the right safety protocols, but are able to travel safely and get the economy back up and moving again.
Airports are getting busy in the sub-region, but also our COVID-19 cases, Sean. With the emergence of a third wave amid the Delta variant, how do you analyze passenger safety?
That's a very good question. And I think there are a lot of places in the world which are taking very different approaches to it. Some places like Dubai, I was in Dubai last week and I was very impressed by, the steps that they're taking there in terms of testing and maintaining protocols and compliance with those. Other places are shutting down more. If you look at Australia, they're tightening up their border controls and so forth. But I think the key to this is you must have a robust strategy. And this is something I've been saying for many months now. Ghana did a very good job on implementing a border control strategy when borders reopened in September last year. The 2-phase testing protocol, where you test someone before departure and you test them again on arrival, has proven to be very successful in keeping imported cases out of Ghana. And that's no different with the Delta variant. If you look at Ghana, which is one of the most open countries in the world right now, the number of cases that are imported, despite being open to the US, to the UK, to parts of Africa and everywhere else, are not that high. And that is showing that the border controls are effective, that they are working, that they are not importing cases. And as long as you're able to have the confidence in that, you can continue to travel, you can continue to open up the economy without the fear of the Delta variant taking over the community circulation.
Great, but even as we're having this discussion, Sean, there are teething issues regarding the COVID passports, especially when the European Union has also placed specific restrictions for countries that use the AstraZeneca vaccines. How does this inform the mainstreaming of relinking airspaces, especially when many people feel that this directive by the EU's medical team is unfair?
I think a lot of things which are happening right now as things are just beginning to reopen, we will look back at in 3 months and say, why did we worry so much about it then? I think, a lot of it is a tempest in a teacup. The EMA, for example, the application for approving Covishield, the Indian manufactured AstraZeneca, is pending with them. It hasn't been approved yet, but at some point of time, it probably will be approved. At that point, there will not be an issue anymore. So, the first adopters of anything will always face additional costs, face additional scrutiny, and probably have more hurdles. But, 6 months ago, we used to say, oh, where are we going to get tests before we travel internationally? Today, you can get a test anywhere within a few hours. And, that has become pretty much a global standard. So I don't expect this to, certainly early adopters will face problems, but I expect that within 3 to 6 months, most of these issues will be settled. There will be a common standard that comes into play. It may not be a uniform standard, but it will be largely accepted. And I think, as I mentioned many months ago, testing will remain for now, and I think vaccination slowly and steadily, Africa being a little on the slow side in terms of vaccination numbers, will eventually wind up taking over as a key travel document, as it has for yellow fever and other inoculations throughout Africa since time immemorial.
Great. Well, let's see how that plays out, Sean. We're so grateful once again that you're able to help us with your thoughts on development within the aviation space. Sean Mendes actually is an aviation expert on development within Ghana's aviation sector. Well, as government embarks on the ambitious Beyond the Return initiative to woo diaspora investment this year, a Ghanaian in the diaspora, Francis Flair, who is a customer service specialist based in the U.S., says the success of this program rests on strict and impressive customer service in the country. I sat with him for a discussion on customer service through the eyes of the diaspora.
It's only in Ghana the business think they're doing the customer a favor. But if you are there for the customer, you care about them, they will even care about you more, right? I know customers who just come in to do business because they knew the business was struggling. They want the business to be around when this was over. So yes, they may not have laid off employees as much as they did, but customers are going to do whatever it takes to keep the brands they love. And that's why you have to be looking for loyalty, not satisfaction.
Great. So I want us to end this discussion on a broad perspective. Once again, Beyond the Return happens this year, and it's into somewhere next year.
Yes.
And with that comes the pressure on government to, as you rightly stated, maintain the standards that saw the year of return successful. From your perspective as a customer service professional, so what instruments should government use to ensure that we're not just bringing in diaspora investment, but we're also keeping them in the medium to long term? I wanted to speak to the national, pressures of customer service.
Yes, I think we need to start focusing on the customer. We need to remember who the boss is at the end of the day. It's not the businesses, it's not the government, it's the people who come in to spend money with us, right? The people who keep the business going. And so in order to move forward and to make sure that we have the people coming back, recommending and referring us to their friends and family to keep this economy going, we need to make sure that we are focusing on them and doing whatever it takes to make them happy.
How can we make them happy?
Well, you listen to them and you make sure that you systematize those standards, right? It cannot be one of those things like flavor of the month, right? We just did it for this time alone. But what is going to happen is the message gets out, they come back, it's not the same, and then they go back and say a different thing, and then we lose it all at the end of the day. So it's important that we are systematizing those standards, but that is going to take some time. Are we ready for that? I don't know. Do we know how to do that? I don't know. Are we willing to invest in it? I don't know. I mean, that's a question for every business to answer. If this is important to you, if it's about your primary aim of acquiring and retaining customers, then I think that should be very, very important to you as a business, that you are able to see that without your customers, I mean, the business ceases to exist. And so it's an investment, it's a process, it takes time. Customer service, customer experience is not a department. In fact, it transcends throughout the organization, because you want to make sure that, again, if you've systematized the standards, regardless of who is taking care of the customer, they are going to have the same experience. And that eventually brings about loyalty, because before you get to loyalty, the customer have to feel trust, right? They have to have that confidence that, you know what, I am okay, I'm confident going to this particular business, because regardless of what happens, they are going to take care of me. I trust them. And in order to do that, we have to make sure that we have those systems in place to offer a consistently great experience every single time. No excuses.
It was very successful to the extent that amid COVID-19 this year, we are reviving this through government initiative. They call it Beyond the Return. Now, speaking from your perspective as a customer service, expert once again, how can customer service become a catalyst to making the Beyond the Return initiative successful for diasporans?
Yes, and that's a great question, and that requires putting systems in place. I mean, we have standards, right? And I think oftentimes businesses think customer service just comes naturally to employees. They don't take the responsibility to actually train them, right? We just hire bodies into position and expect it to work. Now, in terms of long-term and longevity when it comes to the experience, we need to make sure that those standards are being systematized. So it doesn't matter who comes in, it doesn't matter who is serving the customer today or tomorrow. We want to make sure that we are confident that if Charles is the one who took care of you today, and when you come in tomorrow, Francis is not going to be a jerk to you, right? We've systematized our systems, right, to make sure that everything is going according to plan. And so that would be the approach going forward. Actually finding those standards, what made us so successful during the launch of the return, and then systematizing it so that every time anyone comes in, anyone visits, they are getting the same exact experience. Because I'm sure as successful it was, they're going back and telling their friends and family about it. It would be a shame for them to come back and not experience that. Right? It will be like we basically duped them, right? Why is it different from when it was actually the return, and then beyond the return it's not? So that requires some work, that requires some investment that businesses and organizations who are involved in this can actually use that as an opportunity to propel themselves to actually become the brands that customers cannot live without, and eventually make price irrelevant.
And that's Francis Flair there on his thoughts on Beyond the Return and the power of customer service in making it a success. You're still watching The Marketplace. We're going for a short break. We'll be right back with more stories to stay. Now, the World Bank has signed an agreement with the government for the release of some additional funds to fight against the scourge of COVID-19. The $200 million fund will go a long way to help the government procure additional COVID vaccines to support the entire health system to better manage the pandemic. Of course, we shall give you updates in our subsequent bulletins. But, moving on to other stories, the students of Jama Pinsan Senior High School at Abuaso in the Shanti region have been adjudged winners of this year's Renewable Energy Challenge in the region. Well, the contest by the Energy Commission and the Bui Power Authority is meant to encourage local innovations to address Ghana's energy challenges. Officials believe it will inculcate in the students the urge to solve societal problems with practical solutions. Prince Apia was at the event and now reports.
The Renewable Energy Challenge showcased different innovative technologies produced locally by students in senior high schools. 10 schools in Ashanti region took turns to explain practical solutions to Ghana's energy challenges. Jama Pinsan Senior High Technical School, Konongo Dumasi SHS, Jabin SHS, Obuasi Senior High Technical School, Al Azaria Islamic SHS, Prempe College, Kumasi Academy, Kumasi High School, Opokuwari School, and Aguna Senior High Technical School competed in the second edition. Innovations include solar oven, cocoa seed salt dryer, and power management technologies. Jama Pinsan Senior High Technical School, led by Christolov Mogo Arthur and Janet Ohima Nkansa, won the challenge with their plant microbial fuel cell technology.
we can power our light.
In our project, we use the principle based on the redox reaction, and we use photosynthesis. During photosynthesis, what's happening? The glucose, amount of glucose stored, and the bacteria feeds to generate electricity. That's the idea we use generally. For our powerhouse is the German Pensen bacterial powerhouse, the GPANA.
With support from the Ghana Education Service, the Energy Commission partnered the Bui Power Authority for this year's national contest. Julius Nkansa-Nyako is the Chief Programs Officer in charge of bioenergy at the Energy Commission.
We want to develop the research skills of students in our senior high schools. So what we are looking at is for the student to identify challenges in their schools, in their environment, and even in their country, and then come up with solutions that they can prefer to solve those challenges.
Deputy CEO in charge of Finance and Services at Bui Power Authority, Josh Tete, is positive the best of solutions can be scaled up.
Young minds being put to the old problems, to bring out new ideas. And for us, in the renewable energy is a developing area. There's new innovations happening every day. So for us, we want to get the young ones to bring their ideas into the renewable energy space. Maybe there'll be new discoveries from the projects they present, and we'll find ways of sponsoring these discoveries so that we can continue to promote renewable energy in our country.
Ekwia Sechi is the Corporate Affairs Manager at the Bui Power Authority.
One of the main objectives of this program is to encourage women to enter into the field of engineering, mathematics, and science, because you realize that this field is more geared towards the male gender. At Bui Power Authority, we have a lot of young women engineers. So we think that we should encourage more women to also step out boldly and take on engineering programs.
Jama Pensai Secondary Technical School will represent the Shanti region in the national contest later this year. Prince Apia reporting.
And we say a big congratulations to them. That's how we end the marketplace. I'm Charles Aite. For more news, you log on to myjoyonline.com/business, where we have all the trending stories you need to make up your day. Once again, many thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of our program.